We have seen this quite often, right?
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of companies, especially working technology space, they are, so the developers, even the founders are very nerdy, geeky people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they're very proud about technology and they
Yeah.
love it, right? The kind of products they make. So the empathy of user is of course lacking because
Yeah.
they are not the users often,
Yeah.
or they are maybe a subsection of the user entire population. And then when they conduct studies like these, right, so often they get this kind of a aha moment, okay, or like a maybe heartbreaking moment, either of it, where a user is kind of not getting a very obvious thing that they
Yeah.
never thought even is a problem, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole new, like a heartbreaking thing, and then from that point to accepting, yeah, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And then coming to terms ki, yeah, my users are not as nerdy and geeky as I am, and developing that empathy and actually changing some strategies of in design and product development. So this happens like a lot, right? So if anything like that happened in Townscript after conducting a usability study, can you give some
Yeah.
examples?
So I think you're correct. When you have your first usability study and the product which you are very proud of, and when the users get and they're sort of struck, and at that time you are looking at those users. So it's a very like like you are proud of something which you have built, and suddenly like the users are stuck, they're struggling with it. It is actually like little heartbreaking. Because for years you have been very proud of what you're building, and then
Right.
something is very like it's obviously not working out
Right.
for them. And I think like first user studies are very difficult, and it can be demotivating, but then like you quickly come over them, like you start understanding that this is something a part of rebuilding it,
Right.
part of getting it right. And I think whatever the feedback which we got, and then once we improve it, and then we do a follow-up study, and when we see the improvement, it gives you a sense of accomplishments as well, sort of a
Right.
thing. So yeah, I know the first user studies for us was also very difficult, but I think if we see in the hindsight, that is the one of the most valuable things which we did.
So tell us about like the cultural change also. Like I know that after the study the Townscript did,
Yeah.
the lot of conversation which is happening internally inside the company where people are talking about it. So how the cultural, like one is of course the product management
Yeah.
is getting more focused and understand developing deeper
Yeah.
understanding about the users. So that is of course product centric changes, making products more user friendly, intuitive to use. All of that
Yeah.
changes are happening, right?
Yeah.
But what is the impact which is happening in the culture of a company? Because the culture from a very nerdy, geeky culture to like you're exposing them to something which is very different, which does have a human touch to technology, right?
Yeah.
So what was the impact of that on the culture of the company?
So when we started with our usability studies, the main purpose behind starting those studies was to like make our organizations, which was very tech oriented, tech centric, to a more of a user centric. So definitely like there were conversations in the tech team where like people will come up with ideas like this is the next best way to do caching, this is the next best way to enhance the performance or indexing sort of a thing. So the team was always enthusiastic about that, what is the right quality of the code and everything. But we realized that the conversations around user, what is the most intuitive for the users, how to create those wow moments for the users was little lesser.
Right.
And when we started it, we want to change that as well, because of course we are getting a lot of data from the users. We also know that like what users want, but then if the team is not aligned with it,
Yes.
especially your developers are not aligned with it, it won't necessarily have that sort of impact, right? So we started small. What we started was having talks, having conversations with our tech team.
Right.
For example, like when we did a user study, like we took out the report and we showed them ki like, okay, this whole funnel you have been very proud of,
Right.
and but these are the problems, how the users are getting stuck up there.
yeah.
And this actually was very eye opener, because all these developers now, even then they are very proud of this tech, they still want the lot of users to use their user product, right? Because they just don't want they create amazing tech and nobody is using it.
Right.
So once you tell them those stories, once you give them that data, they really get aligned. It is
Right.
faster.
Yeah.
And secondly, like we also gave them very examples. See, what is we released, and here this is the how user interacted and user
Right.
thought about it.
Yes.
So having those talks with them, and we used to have weekly talks. So I told my product team, we gave them the weekly targets. You have to have it every week.
Right.
Even if it is 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that is fine.
Right.
But have it every week. sort of a thing.
It's a recurring thing.
It has to be recurring thing, otherwise people tend to forget it. If you have to change the culture, it has to be very recurring. You have to keep hammering those concepts into the heads.
Yes.
And eventually I saw that the culture started changing. Even we started with a lot of these small design sprints as well. So this concept was introduced by Google as well. So when you are working on a small design idea, so having a design sprint of 5 days, and we used to include developers as well, somebody from QA and product team, or somebody from the business team, having a collaborative team and brainstorming about and building prototypes about it. Even those design sprints brought a lot of cultural change in our sort of a thing. So initially, like I still recall, in initial days, they were not volunteering for it. But within 3 months now, this tech team was like, I want to be part of the design sprint. I want to be part of this usability study where the users are being there. So that shift happened, and it happened way quicker than what we initially thought.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.